This is VikesNow, and I am Dustin Baker on a solo trip. This is August 4th, my wife's birthday, and I'm going to talk about the Chris Reed signing in retrospect and then in context for today, generally speaking, for August, because it dawned on me, and you probably knew it all along because you're astute. Perhaps we misjudged the acquisition of Chris Reed to begin with. So I'm going to lay out the case for why I misconstrued what he could be, and perhaps you, the fellow Vikings enthusiast, how we might have got it wrong in free agency, what the role was for him. So this is a timeline of evidence, and by the end of this, I think you might come to the conclusion that this dude is cut out to play center. Just a theory. If it's wrong, you can chide me. It's fine. Comments, that's what those are for. But let's start. Back in March, the Vikings signed Jesse Davis from the Miami Dolphins, who spent his first 2 seasons playing guard before Miami shifted him to tackle. He was a average tackle. He is not excellent. That's kind of the vibe for all of his Pro Football Focus scores, his performance in general in Miami, that the Vikings signed a dude who has started at tackle for the last few seasons to come play for the Vikings. And at the time, we didn't know, was he just a backup to O'Neal and Darisaw, or what's the deal? But he was in the house, and not long after that, Chris Reed came aboard, another Kwesi Adolphus-Mensah special, and this gentleman actually played guard. He's been a journeyman from the Jaguars, Panthers. I think he stopped in the Jets for a year, if I'm not mistaken, and now the Vikings. But he is an interior defensive lineman at heart, doesn't do anything with tackle for the most part. So unlike Davis, Reed, who has pretty decent grades from Pro Football Focus, there's your solution for the Vikings, especially the Vikings who have had problems since 2018 nailing down the right guard spot. Now, Joe Berger in 2017, pretty good, but largely since the departure of Steve Hutchinson and Bryant McKinney, the offensive line, at least in pass protection, not anything to write home about. So, all right, cool. We have Jesse Davis, Chris Reed, solution-oriented thinking from the new regime. We'll take it. Then the team used a second-round draft pick to select Ed Ingram, a guard from LSU, a controversial pick because of his history. Well, what are they going to do there? Is he going to play guard? He oughta. As a second-round pick, these guys shouldn't waste away or marinate on the bench, interior linemen, that is, because otherwise you can wait. You can get them 3rd, 4th, 5th. They'll work out just fine. But when you draft a guard in the 2nd round, that means you have a quasi-imminent plan to play him. Now, he's finally signed his contract, about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, and he's in the house, presumably competing for the right guard spot. They did not draft a center, and all of the words coming out of their mouth were positive about Garrett Bradbury, that we are the coaching staff that can fix him. We're going to bulk him up, teach him how to anchor, and be a pass protector. Most of us were like, I don't know if that's going to magically start happening. But if you can do it, then that pick will be salvaged. So, go for it, homie. And that's what we've watched them do for 4 or 5 months. Say the good things about Bradbury. But nevertheless, they did not draft a center in the NFL draft, which would have been pretty smart for a center on an expiring rookie contract, because Bradbury will not return to the team next year on a 5th-year option. It would have cost $13 million or so. They also didn't sign a free agent center. They could have done that. They could still do that on the Treader Express. J.C. Treader is one of the best pass-blocking centers in the world, and he also played last for the Cleveland Browns, which is where Kwesi Adolphus-Mensah worked. It's been a match made in heaven since March. Nobody else realizes it in the Vikings front office anyway, and Treader doesn't play for the Vikings, and he's curiously still a free agent. So they have this verbal commitment to Bradbury, didn't draft a center, didn't sign one. All right, so Bradbury, they know they can fix him, right? Well, June minicamp hints, and then the puzzle shifts a little bit. Jesse Davis is considered the front runner at right guard, even though his last 3 seasons have been that of a offensive tackle. So we peter out of that thinking, all right, well, hey, if he does the trick at right guard, we'll take it. Doesn't matter to us what he played in the past. We'll continue this trend of switching dudes around in the offensive line as long as it works and their name isn't Dakota Dozier and their name isn't Drew Samia and they don't get penalties like Oli Udoh. We don't care who plays right guard. Just give us a PFF score north of 65.0 and we'll be happy. And let's make sure that's heavy on pass protection because, that's been deficient for a long time. So out of June, we're like, all right, we got a front runner. It's Jesse Davis. We'll take it. Again, that's fine. Well, if you fast forward to the next batch of meaningful transactions, in this case, training camp stuff that matters on the field, suddenly Chris Reed is the second team center. And now he has experience. He told Chris Thomason, our dude from the Pioneer Press, that, I'll play wherever they need me on the interior offensive line. Reed can play left guard, or Reed can play center, Reed can play right guard. It just so happens that right guard has been his baby as of late. But he can play center, and he has done so in a reservist capacity in his NFL career. Well, if he's taking snaps as the second team center, which was revealed to us in the past week, that would mean if Garrett Bradbury tore his ACL in the next 20 minutes, Reed would be the next man up, at least what they're indicating on the field in Eagan right now. Well, Bradbury hasn't torn his ACL, but he has, surprisingly, struggled so far in training camp, getting knocked over a few times, and he looks like the Bradbury that we know and love, one who is a decent run blocker but doesn't quite do the trick, especially for a pocket passer in Kirk Cousins. Well, I don't know if the coaching staff foresaw the Bradbury struggles, but if they continue and they can proceed to tell us that we are contending for the playoffs, then you're going to need a better solution at center. Then what would you do? Well, if you're not going to sign J.C. Treader, you'd pivot to the backup. Bada bing, that's Chris Reed, at least who you're putting on the field as a backup right now. So I think, especially me, looking through Reed as a solution at right guard, because that's what he naturally plays, at least did so for the Colts, that, okay, well, we got Reed to fix the RG spot. Perhaps they never saw him as that, as the grand plan. There is a very feasible chance that Reed was signed to be the contingency plan to Garrett Bradbury. He just had the wrong acronym attached to his last resume with the Colts. It said RG next to it. So I think that the lens that we've perceived his free agency is maybe he's not a guard after all, because why the hell is Jesse Davis playing right guard in June and not Reed, the career guard? No, I'm starting to believe that if Bradbury can't figure this thing out, that Chris Reed will be your center at an undisclosed time in the regular season. So on the whole, why do I think this now? Because there's no other contingency plan unless Austin Schlottman is suddenly, oh yeah, we're gonna pivot to him after Bradbury. That's the only other item that would make sense, unless they have a secret plan for Ingram to play center. So I think the writing is on the wall that, hey, Jesse Davis, we're gonna make him a right guard. Look what we're doing with this Reed gentleman over here as the second team center. I think the next man up in the event of a Bradbury performance collapse or continuation or an injury, it would be Chris Reed at center, and then you would let it ride. And that would explain why they never signed Treader. They didn't draft a center, is because they said, we're fine. We've got Chris Reed. That's why we signed him. And again, Reed has that duality of background, being able to play three positions inside the Vikings offensive line or any team's offensive line. So it's something to monitor, and I think the biggest indicator, aside from not doing anything else at center, is the utilization of Davis. If he continues to trend as the right guard, and Reed is a good right guard, you don't want Reed to just do nothing. And if you have a struggle merchant in Bradbury at center, by the way, Reed can play center, then you might as well find the best fivesome available. And in this case, Bradbury would exit stage left and become a backup for his final days with the Vikings, and boom, Reed is your starting center. that is the theory I have. I invite you to tell me I'm ludicrous in the comments, or email me, dustinbakernfl@gmail.com. But yeah, I guess open your heart and your ears to the fact that Chris Reed might be on the docket for center if Bradbury doesn't have a surprising about face in the next, what do we got, 38 days until week 1, Vikings-Packers. All right, that's all I got. This was the Thursday edition. I will be back Friday, and all we got, Skol, baby.